disruptive.
America that I fought for.
Weird thing to happen. Hello, one and all. Welcome to this edition of Kitz Corner. Hope you're having a fantastic day so far. So we showed you Tucker Carlson, who launched his show on Twitter just the other day. Doing his first episode, got 100 million views just within a couple days. That's more than any legacy media outlet will get in months and maybe years. Exposing the truth of what happened with the recent events of this hydroelectric dam that exploded in Ukraine along the Ukrainian-Crimean border, and why the news media continues once again to propagate and fail us at every point in turn, whilst Tucker Carlson is giving us a fresher perspective of the bigger picture and why we're being manipulated, why we're not getting the right information, why there's no investigation, why we're not allowed to be curious and actually ask questions about why we're infiltrating this war, why we're sending money off to Ukraine, why we know that we're funding a bunch of neo-Nazis and continuing to do so in the names of democracy. Why are we continuing to thrive this? So I'm not going to show the whole clip here because we already showed in the last one, but here's just a bit of a recap here of what he said in his first show here.
But a critical hydro has managed to classify more than 1 billion Kakhovka Dam in southern Ukraine. The rushing wall of water wiped out entire villages, destroyed a critical hydropower plant, and as of tonight puts the largest nuclear reactor in Europe in danger of melting down. So if this was intentional, it was not a military tactic, it was an act of terrorism. The question is, who did it? Well, let's see. The Kakhovka Dam was effectively Russian. It was built by the Russian government. It currently sits in Russian-controlled territory. The dam's reservoir supplies water to Crimea, which has been, for the last 240 years, home of the Russian Black Sea Fleet. Blowing up the dam may be bad for Ukraine, but it hurts Russia more. And for precisely that reason, the Ukrainian government has considered destroying it. In December, the Washington Post quoted a Ukrainian general saying his men had fired American-made rockets at the dam's floodgate as a test strike. So really, once the facts start coming in, it becomes much less of a mystery what might have happened to the dam. Any fair person would conclude that the Ukrainians probably blew it up, just as you would assume they blew up Nord Stream, the Russian natural gas pipeline, last fall. And in fact, the Ukrainians did do that, as we know.
So what Tucker Carlson is addressing here, and why this video got 100 million views and continuing to grow, is he's reminding us that there's more to the story than what meets the eye. That when you look at the internal investigations, when you look at the facts, when you look at past reports, when you look at the history and longevity of all this, you understand that this was purposely done to manipulate people to think that somehow Vladimir Putin and his evil, nefarious regime did this to themselves. But that's not the case, because why would Vladimir Putin blow up a hydroelectric dam that was providing water to a Russian-protected land? Why would they do that? The same way they would destroy their own pipeline that was providing the country with billions and billions of dollars of economic security. Why would they do that to themselves? It doesn't make sense. Exactly the point that he's making. It does not make sense because it is propaganda to believe that story when what really happened is a bunch of Ukrainians and the militia that we hired by NATO and the Western countries aligned themselves to cause this terror. They create this terror so then we can go fight the terror, which is the same exact thing that we've been doing for years and decades. We have to manufacture terror in order to fight a war on terror. That's why these are business wars. That's why these are manufactured wars. They're creating these acts of terror, the atrocities around the world, to then manipulate people so that people watching us on screen are being lied and propagated to by the mainstream media to think that Vladimir Putin had something to do with this, and then that we need to go after them. We need to send them more money and cause more havoc because Vladimir Putin is such an evil character. But Tucker Carlson gave us a cleaner perspective. And because he's able to do this, because he's on Twitter and allowing himself to actually tell us about the nefarious ways of the mainstream media, of course, is going to get a lot of mixed reaction. So, good, some positive ones, though, too. So here's Glenn Greenwald, for example. He says, Tucker Carlson is the most successful host in history of cable news. Even in his stripped-down Twitter form, he attracted an audience almost no corporate media employee could ever get close to. Is it possible this partially motivates the universal disdain that they have for him? So that's an excellent point. That's an excellent point. That one of the reasons why, you'd see CNN articles popping up about this, how Tucker Carlson's such a failure that he's doing a low budget show on Twitter. Why they're doing reports on him, trying to, squash him down, is because they're jealous of him. They're truly jealous of him, that even on Twitter, even doing a Twitter form podcast show, he is getting more success than any mainstream media outlet has gotten in years. Even the most predominant personalities like Rachel Maddow and Anderson Cooper could never, ever get the same viewership and strong ratings that Tucker Carlson was able to do even on Twitter. And that's why they're motivated to attack this guy, to attack Tucker Carlson and still say he's a nefarious buffoon and still say he's a crazed individual, even though he was part of the establishment. He worked at MSNBC, he was on CNN, and when he did the interview with Jon Stewart, and he's been on Fox News. He's been around all places. But they still want to attack him because he's a predominant figure. Because he's scoring huge amount of success, even on Twitter. That's what Glenn Greenwald's pointing out here. But here's where the mess really happens. So Matt Duss, you remember who Matt Duss is. He's the former member of the Bernie campaign. He's a complete war pig, absolute, Russiagator, and ridiculous failure that he is. He says, Carlson says Zelensky, sweaty and rat-like, a comedian turned oligarch and persecutor of Christians. I don't care if this harassed populism gives you a little thrill. No decent or effective anti-fascist left could have anything to do with this anti-Semite. So, this is the absurdity of how people can go. And I remember a lot of people, and there's still people to this day, but I remember at the beginning of when we knew about the Ukrainian war, one of the biggest things that people were trying to scapegoat and trying to, smear people with was, if you question Zelensky or you question his leadership, you were automatically an anti-Semite. Because Zelensky is a Jewish man. And people were defending his atrocity, were defending his regime with neo-Nazis and saying that, well, he can't align himself with neo-Nazis because he's a Jewish man. And that was the smear that people were trying to project onto people and cover up the critical information about the fact that we were mobilizing a bunch of neo-Nazis to slaughter people. We were purposely doing that, and they were trying to cover up by saying, well, the leader is a Jewish man, so they can't be Nazis. Even though the mainstream media has reported in advance, beforehand, that we were aligning ourselves with neo-Nazis. We were mobilizing them. We were giving them military strategic training and exercises to mobilize them to slaughter and kill innocent Ukrainians and Russians for our doing. Our doing of NATO and Western allied countries. And Matt Duss is calling Tucker Carlson an anti-Semite. Not mentioning anything about his religion. Not mentioning a single word about the fact that he's a Jewish man. But because he's pointing out his policies and being a leader in wartime, purposely going aggressive on this war, he's going to smack down a reporter for telling you that. That's the kind of figure that Matt Duss is. Or how about this guy? Taylor Lorenz. Because this is absolutely hilarious. Taylor Lorenz, who I thought was supposed to be off Twitter, when she cried about how there's so many, nefarious people. Oh my God, there's so many people tweeting. I need to get off this platform. Taylor Lorenz, who wants you to follow her on LinkedIn, apparently, says it's wild to see what a fish out of water he is on the internet. No jump cuts, no background music, no catchy thumbnail or video title. Not sure how he's going to strap back against an average streamer or YouTuber. I don't know how he's going to advance back considering he's got 100 million views in just a couple days. I don't know how he's going to advance back, folks. I mean, there is no catchy music. There's no musical number. God, the production value is terrible on this show. This is the most stupidest excuses to pounce on Tucker Carlson. Just like the stupid excuse to pounce on me. Because I always got these comments like this. Anytime I posted one of my videos, people always said, well, look at his podcast. It looks ridiculous. He has no studio setup. He has no production value to this. Even though, I got background music, I got microphones, I don't know what else you want. I mean, it's really about the content itself, but in this day and age, people are just so naive, so manipulative. It's just insanely ridiculous. Taylor Lorenz, follow her on Twitter, or follow her on LinkedIn, because Twitter is too much for her, but she wants to continue to tweet. I don't get it. Here's Ann Applebaum. So, Ann Applebaum is a notorious Russiagator. She has been, for years, trying to combat this. Trying to combat people like Tucker Carlson and Donald Trump in concocting these ridiculous stories of how she's one of the notorious figures that says, we're that close. We're that close to convicting them for made-up crimes. Even though there's actual criminals right now that are doing nefarious stuff out in the open that we know about, that we can confirm through reporting. We can actually confirm that there are criminals in the politic world that need to be convicted, that need to be held accountable. She's not going to do it, but Tucker Carlson might, and that's what makes Tucker Carlson different from the rest of the mainstream media. But anyway, Ann Applebaum says Tucker Carlson's lies cost Fox $800 million. Now he's still lying, and Twitter will eventually pay the price too. Again, how exactly is he lying? How exactly? There's no backing to your argument, and it's just absurdity. It's just absurdity that they're trying to make anything possible to pounce on Tucker Carlson, because as Glenn Greenwald pointed out, that this is about jealousy, and the fact that Tucker Carlson, even doing a Twitter show, is substantially way more popular than any mainstream media outlet. The same thing they did with Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, who got pounced at for saying that, oh, he's an average podcaster, he's a comedian, he does it in his garage, he's not relevant to people. Well, it turns out he does way more. He has more relevant followers than any single outlet in probably the world. Joe Rogan is the most influential podcaster out there in the world compared to legacy media, compared to mainstream. And that's why they got to concoct these ridiculous charades and stories. So, just to show you, Ann Applebaum, this is one of her prime examples of how much of a Russiagator she is. This is her claim to fame, is writing opinion pieces like this. for the Washington Post, saying the case for Trump-Russia collusion, we're getting very, very close. We're almost there. Almost there. We just got to figure out a story. We actually got to figure out how there's a connection. But there's a connection. We just got to figure out how there is. That is the serious journalistic work of Ann Applebaum, who works for the Atlantic Council, who is pouncing at Tucker Carlson for lying. Even though she has done nefarious articles like this for years and has never retracted, never apologized, never actually been held accountable or proven or evidence to base these claims. None of that. But Tucker Carlson is the evil one because he hosts a Twitter show. Just ridiculous absurdity. And then it got even worse when there was blowback from a member of the Ukrainian parliament who spoke to Tucker Carlson. Or at least attempting to, because he made this Twitter video reaching out to Tucker Carlson. And this is a member of the Ukrainian parliament who's trying to pounce back at Tucker Carlson for exposing the government of Ukraine for aligning themselves with neo-Nazis and creating this atrocity, which is exactly what it is. But here's what this guy has to say.
Parliament of Ukraine. And now I want to address to Tucker Carlson. Mr. Carlson, you again spread a disinformation about what's going on in my country, about what had happened with the Kakhovka Dam yesterday. I was personally in Kherson. I saw everything by my own eyes. The catastrophe of the planetary scale, thousands of houses destroyed, tens of thousands of people in danger. Definitely there are victims. And that all what I'm telling now is just a short-term.
Oh my God. That's the funniest thing. That's such a childish answer. You are such a liar. Well, how come? Because I saw it with my own eyes. There was definitely a dam, and it went pop, and there was water everywhere. That's not what we're talking about. Everybody acknowledges that the dam exploded. We just want to figure out who caused it to explode. That's why Tucker Carlson did that show. It's not the fact that, oh, he doesn't agree that the dam exploded. Obviously, the dam exploded. We know that. We saw it with our own eyes. That's not the conflicting part. The conflicting part is who exactly is responsible for it. You're saying that it's Russia that's responsible for blowing up this dam. But this dam is backed by the Russian government. The dam that's being protected by the Russians in a Russian protected area. It doesn't make sense that they blow up their own dam to spite you. It does not make sense. That's the thing that we're trying to be critical of. You idiots.
Consequences, long-term consequences for ecology, for environment will be awful, both for the southern Ukraine and for the Black Sea. And you know, I am now in my hands.
By the way, did anyone hold account to the fact that the Nord Stream 2 pipeline explosion would cause ecological disaster? Has anyone brought that to attention? No. No. Not a word about that, but anyway.
I'm holding the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution of the United States of America. And I just want to quote that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. I want to tell you, Russian Federation is taking our right to live on our land, is destroying.
So, you called Tucker Carlson a liar and saying he didn't acknowledge the explosion of the dam, even though that's what he was reporting on, and he was trying to figure out who caused it. which you're not acknowledging, and then you hold up the Constitution, reading that aloud, and saying that the Russian Federation is destroying your rights and freedoms. You're not American. You're part of the Ukrainian parliament. When did Ukraine become the 51st state of America? Someone explain that to me. Tucker Carlson, who is a U.S. citizen, also has the right to freedom of speech. He has the right to the freedom of the press. He's allowed to investigate. He's allowed to be curious. I know that's hard to believe in this era of the corruption of the censorship cabal and the mainstream, dichotomy and the mainstream psychopaths that control us. I know that's hard to believe, but we actually have the ability to be curious and ask questions. Like, who was responsible for blowing up the pipeline? He's not acknowledging it. He's not even going to bother to question it. But he's going to defame a journalist for bothering to investigate it. Which makes me think, maybe something about you is responsible for that. I can't say heads or tails of it, but I'm going to be curious in the fact that why you're not asking questions of who is responsible for this catastrophic damage. Just like who is responsible for the catastrophic damage of blowing up a natural gas pipeline that has created the most ecological natural disaster in the sea, in that country, around that region, that no one is really investigated on.
In our land is destroying our liberties. That's what's going on today. And I am absolutely ready to speak with you in your show any moment you will think it is possible, because it's important for me to reach to your audience and to explain them what's really going on in Ukraine and why the victory of Ukraine will be the victory of the whole world and definitely of the United States of America. And if Russia would not be stopped, they will destroy the whole planet. Thank you.
Oh my God. First of all, I think the United States is already 3/4 there. The United States has already purposely perpetrated into destroying the world. I mean, we were viciously close and still continuing to be viciously close to nuclear annihilation, either with Russia or China. We still haven't figured it out, but at some point, they want to initiate nuclear war, which would catastrophically damage the entire world and every single living creature on this planet. That's never been brought to address, though. That he's never going to acknowledge that. But he is very serious about the fact that I will come on your show and preach you about liberty and freedom and the pursuit of happiness. Brought to you by BlackRock, because they are going to be the saviors of coming into Ukraine and providing us the equitable liberty at a small fraction of the cost. I can't believe this. I don't even know who this guy is. Does he even have a name to this? Okay, this is Alexia. I can't even pronounce his name. Alexia Gonachariko, who says F you, Tucker Carlson. Because Tucker Carlson is a journalist providing perspective, and you're just a henchman of the Ukrainian oligarchy. Who you gonna trust more? Let's just put that up. Who are you gonna trust more? Tucker Carlson is providing a perspective and actually trying to hold accountable to what this natural disaster, who was responsible to this? Or the guy that's saying F you because you brought attention to this and you're a crazed individual. Just trying to pounce on Tucker Carlson for the fact of pouncing on Tucker Carlson. And considering that Tucker Carlson got 100 million plus views in that episode, it shows what side the people are really on. That they really want a truer perspective, a fresh perspective, instead of this corporate mainstream BlackRock kerfuffle of propaganda spewed down their throats, that they actually want a humane approach to reporting and investigating and holding things accountable and being investigated and researching and actually having a perspective of the whole situation. Tucker Carlson was not denying that this happened. He was trying to find out who was responsible to this, which you, surprisingly, are not addressing. Which makes me think that you, maybe, somewhere down the line, were responsible. I can't put my foot down on that, but considering the facts and considering what you said there and what Tucker Carlson says there, I'm putting 2 and 2 together.